I gave my wife power of attorney to help me through grief. She gave herself a new signature to match her lover's, my mother's estate attorney. They stole $340,000 while I held my dying mother's hand. She wanted space? I gave her a front row seat to her own public execution. You won't believe what happened at that memorial. But let me back up. Because the thing about betrayal is it doesn't announce itself. It walks through your front door wearing a concerned face, offering to help carry your burdens. Mine walked in wearing my wife's face. January 2024. My mother, Eleanor Grace Cooper, got her diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors at UCSD Morse Cancer Center gave her 3 to 6 months. She made it to 3.5, but those final months weren't living. They were a slow erasure. I took family medical leave from my teaching job at Torrey Pines High School, moved into the recliner chair beside her hospice bed, read her favorite Steinbeck novels at 2 in the morning when the morphine wasn't enough. East of Eden, over and over. She'd smile at the parts about choosing your own path, about rejecting your father's sins. I'd hold her hand and pretend I couldn't feel how light it had become, how the bones were visible now beneath skin like tissue paper. Rebecca, my wife of 12 years, would text during those long nights. Need anything? From our house in Del Mar, 15 minutes away. I'd text back, we're okay. We both knew she wasn't coming. Mom would ask where Rebecca was, her voice reduced to a whisper. I'd say, getting rest, she'll be here tomorrow. Mom would nod. We both knew tomorrow meant never. Looking back, maybe I should have seen that as the first sign, but grief makes you blind to everything except the person you're losing. Mom died on March 18th, 2024. I was reading to her when it happened. Rebecca arrived 20 minutes after she'd already gone. Perfect timing to avoid the hard part. The funeral was March 23rd. Standard service, packed church, casseroles for weeks after. My sister Jessica flew in from Boston, stayed 2 days, barely spoke to me. We'd been estranged since Mom's will came out, 70% to me, 30% to Jessica. Mom had included a clause about primary caregiving. Jessica saw it as manipulation. I saw it as Mom being practical about who'd actually shown up. 8 days after the funeral, I was sitting at our kitchen table, staring at the stack of estate paperwork like it was written in another language, probate, tax implications, trust distributions. My mother had spent 35 years as a nurse at Sharp Memorial Hospital, saving carefully, investing wisely. She'd left behind $890,000. To me, it felt like blood money. I couldn't spend it, couldn't even think about it. Rebecca sat down across from me with 2 cups of coffee and a manila folder. Honey, she said, and her voice had that soft, concerned tone that makes you feel cared for. You're in no state to handle estate taxes and probate. Let me take care of this. She slid a document across the table. Durable power of attorney, financial authority, all very official, notarized by Brian Marshall's assistant. Brian had been our family's estate attorney for 15 years, managed Mom's trusts, drafted her will, walked us through every legal question with patience. I signed. Right there at the same table where Mom had signed her own will 3 years earlier. Why wouldn't I trust my wife? That notary stamp would later feel like a branding iron. By May, I dragged myself back to teaching. Junior and senior U.S. history, the New Deal, World War II, the parts of American history where people had real problems that made mine feel small. Rebecca would pack my lunch, kiss my forehead before I left. She posted on Instagram a photo of me grading papers, caption reading, so proud of my husband for getting back to what he loves, supporting my grieving partner through the hardest season. Her followers ate it up. 85,000 people double-tapped their sympathy. She joined a Pilates studio in Encinitas around then. Said she needed self-care after all that hospital stress. I bought her the membership. $180 a month seemed reasonable. I wanted her to feel better. The caregiving had been hard on both of us, or so I thought. She started mentioning Brian's name more often. Brian thinks we should reallocate the trust funds for better tax efficiency. Brian says a state settlement can take up to 18 months in California. Brian's been so helpful with all these complicated filings. I thought she was just grateful. Brian had been family adjacent for over a decade, came to our barbecues, was godfather to our daughter Hannah, though that was more honorary than religious. Of course, Rebecca would appreciate his help during a difficult time. In June, Rebecca took a 3-day girls' trip to Napa Valley. Wine tasting, spa day, reconnecting with herself after the heaviness of loss. I watched the kids. Kevin was 10, Hannah was 8, and told her to have fun. She deserved it. She'd been so supportive. The Tiffany bracelet showed up in July, just before her 37th birthday. Delicate silver chain, returned to Tiffany heart tag. She wore it constantly. When I asked about it, she said, "My mom sent it for my birthday. Isn't it beautiful?" Her mother hadn't bought her jewelry since her sweet 16, but I was teaching summer school, drowning in boxes of mom's belongings I couldn't bring myself to sort through. A bracelet from her mother seemed plausible. Everything seemed plausible when you're too exhausted to question. By August, something felt off. Nothing I could name, just a subtle shift. Rebecca seemed lighter, happier even. She'd laugh at her phone, then quickly put it away when I entered the room. She'd mention needing to run errands, then come home hours later with nothing but a coffee cup. Small things, explainable things, the kind of things that, looking back, form a pattern. But in the moment, you tell yourself you're paranoid, that grief is making you suspicious, that your wife of 12 years wouldn't, but she would, and she did. March 15th, 2025, nearly a year after Mom died. I'd been planning the memorial anniversary service, nothing big, just close friends and family gathering to remember her, a chance to honor the woman who'd given me everything. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Flying in Friday for the anniversary. Can we talk about Mom's estate? Just want to make sure everything's in order." My first thought, here we go. She's going to contest the will, challenge the 70-30 split, drag us both through probate court to fight over money neither of us really needed. I texted back, "Sure, coffee?" She suggested Panikin Coffee and Tea in La Jolla, Mom's favorite spot. The place she'd meet her book club every Thursday for 30 years seemed fitting, if painful. Jessica looked different when I saw her, sharper somehow. She'd cut her hair short, wore a blazer that screamed Boston Finance District. She'd always been the numbers person, CPA at Ernst & Young, the one who could read a spreadsheet like I read Steinbeck. We ordered Earl Grey for both of us, Mom's choice, and sat at the corner table. Jessica didn't waste time on small talk. She slid a spreadsheet across the table. "When did Brian start charging $28,000 per quarter for administration?" I blinked at the numbers. "Is that a lot?" "Daniel." Her voice had that edge it gets when she thinks I'm being deliberately obtuse. "That's $112,000 annually for estate administration. Your estate was worth $890,000. He's charged you 12.6%. For what exactly?" I pulled the spreadsheet closer, saw line items I'd never looked at closely. Administrative fees, $28,000. Consulting services, $21,250. Tax planning consultation, $15,500. Every quarter, like clockwork, for the past year. Maybe California probate is expensive? Even as I said it, I knew it sounded weak. Jessica's laugh was bitter. "I handle estates worth $50 million in Massachusetts. Standard administration is 3 to 5% of total estate value. That's $26,000 to $44,000 total. Brian's charged over $100,000 in 12 months, and that's just administration." Look at this line. Miscellaneous consulting fees, $85,000. Miscellaneous, Daniel. What does that even mean? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Rebecca handles the estate stuff. She has power of attorney. Who gave her power of attorney? I did. After the funeral, I was a mess. She offered to help with the paperwork. Jessica's face changed. Not angry, exactly. Worse. Pitying. Daniel, do you review the bank statements? No, I couldn't. Looking at Mom's accounts felt like grief, I know. She pulled out another document. I had a friend at Pacific Western Bank pull some records, took some favors. There's a joint account opened last June. Guess whose names are on it? I didn't want to guess. Didn't want to know. Rebecca Ann Cooper and Brian Marshall, joint signatories, $340,000 transferred in 5 installments between June and December. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. That's not possible. Rebecca wouldn't she? Jessica's voice was gentle now, which made it worse. I'm sorry. I know you loved her. Maybe still do. But these numbers don't lie. Someone's been moving Mom's money, and it's not you. I drove home in a fog. Rebecca was at work, hospital administrator at Sharp Memorial, ironically the same hospital where Mom had worked as a nurse for 35 years. I sat in our driveway for 20 minutes, Jessica's spreadsheet burning a hole in my passenger seat. Then I called the number Jessica had written at the bottom of the page. Thomas Reed, forensic CPA. Thomas Reed's office was in a nondescript building off Miramar Road. He looked like an accountant from a movie. Wire-rimmed glasses, meticulously organized desk, the kind of person who irons his jeans. He pulled up files on his laptop within minutes. Your sister was right to be concerned. Let me show you something. He turned the screen toward me. Pacific Western Bank account details. This joint account was opened June 18th, 2024, 3 months after your mother's death. Signatories, Rebecca A. Cooper and Brian Marshall. Not separate accounts with authorization. Joint ownership. Equal access to all funds. How is that legal? It's not. This is embezzlement using power of attorney. Your wife authorized payments from the estate to this joint account, ostensibly for estate expenses. Then both she and Mr. Marshall made withdrawals. Classic affinity fraud. They exploit a position of trust during a vulnerable time. He pulled up another document. Here's the signature card from when the account was opened. He zoomed in. Rebecca's signature looked, wrong. The loops were different. The slant was off. That doesn't look like her usual signature, I said, because it's not. Thomas pulled up another file. This is her signature from your mortgage documents dated 2019. See the cursive R, the tall B, very distinctive style. He overlaid the 2 signatures. Now look at the June 2024 signature, block print, shorter ascenders. The baseline slant matches Mr. Marshall's writing style almost perfectly. I stared at the screen. She changed her handwriting. People don't naturally change signatures at age 37, Mr. Cooper. This is deliberate mimicry. I've seen it before in embezzlement cases. If her signature matches his, any forged documents look more cohesive. Makes it harder to prove who authorized what. I asked Dr. Linda Hayes, the handwriting expert Thomas recommended from UCSD's Forensic Linguistics Department, the same question 2 days later. She was more direct. Your wife practiced changing her signature to match Mr. Marshall's script. See these practice sheets we found in the account opening documentation. She went through multiple iterations. This isn't accidental. This is premeditated fraud. I wanted to throw up. Why would she do that? I asked, though I already knew. Dr. Hayes looked at me like I was a child who needed hard truths. So, when she forges documents, the signatures look cohesive. It's a classic embezzlement technique. I've testified in 12 cases with similar patterns. They all end the same way. Thomas handed me another document that afternoon. Hotel receipt, Fairmont Grand Del Mar, March 8th through 10th, 2024. 2 guests. $2,680. I checked my phone calendar. March 9th. I had a photo saved, me reading to Mom in hospice, her oxygen mask, my exhausted face, the timestamp 3:42 p.m. I looked at the hotel receipt again. Check-in time 3:15 p.m. March 9th. My mother's last coherent day, the day she asked me about her husband who died 20 years ago, the day she told me she was proud of me, the day I held her hand and told her it was okay to let go. Rebecca had checked into a 5-star hotel suite 27 minutes before that photo was taken. 15 minutes from the hospice. While I watched my mother die, my wife was drinking champagne in a hotel room with our family lawyer. I made it to the bathroom before I vomited. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the hotel receipt, the signature card, the $340,000. I wandered through our house at 2 a.m, looking at everything with new eyes. Our family iPad sat on the kitchen counter. We used it for recipes, for the kids' games, for shared calendars. I picked it up, planning to search for nothing in particular, maybe just to feel less alone. The Messages app was open. I almost closed it. Then I saw a name at the top of the conversation list, Brian Marshall. My wife's messages, synced via iCloud family sharing. I'd never checked them before, never had a reason to, never even thought about it. I clicked on Brian's name. The first message was from June 23rd, 2024. Daniel's finally sleeping through the night. Took him long enough. Can we do Napa this weekend? I scrolled, kept scrolling. 8 months of messages. June to February. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day. August 15th. Once the estate settles and we move the last 120,000, you can file. California is no fault, but timing matters for asset protection. Trust me on this. September 3rd. The Pilates studio excuse is perfect. Nobody questions self-care. Meet you at the usual spot at 11? October 22nd. Daniel asked about the bracelet today. I told him my mom sent it. He believed me. God, he believes everything. December 3rd. Kevin asked why I'm always working late. I said, Mommy has important meetings. He's so gullible, just like his dad. I read that one 10 times. Our 10-year-old son. She called him gullible for trusting his mother, for believing the lies she fed him about where she was going, what she was doing. I think that's when the grief turned into something else, something cold and sharp. There were photos. Cabo San Lucas Resort, luxury suite, the girls' trip to Napa that was actually a romantic weekend, screenshots of Pinterest boards titled Our Future, house designs in La Quinta, furniture arrangements, paint colors. They'd planned everything. Wait for the estate to fully settle, file for divorce, split assets 50-50 under California community property law, including my mother's inheritance. Move to La Quinta together, start fresh. Rebecca had written, 6 more months and we're free. I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning instead of sneaking around. Daniel will be fine. He has his teaching job and his sad dad routine. The kids will adjust. Everyone always adjusts. Brian's response, you're brilliant, beautiful and brilliant. Eleanor would never have approved, but Eleanor's gone. This is our time. My mother's name in his mouth, in the context of an affair, in the context of stealing her money. I read until 4 a.m, couldn't stop. Every message was worse than the last. They discussed what they'd tell people, how they'd frame the divorce as mutual and amicable, how I'd been impossible to live with since Mom died, how Rebecca had tried everything but couldn't save the marriage. The narrative was already written. I was the grieving widower who'd pushed his wife away. She was the patient saint who'd finally had enough. By dawn, I had screenshots of everything, 8 months of evidence, 263 messages. I backed them up to 3 different locations. Then I called Jessica. I need to talk to someone, I said. Someone who knew Mom well. Someone who might have noticed things I didn't. Jessica understood immediately. Margaret Lewis had been Mom's best friend for 32 years. They'd met at Sharp Memorial when they were both young nurses, both newly married, both building lives. Margaret had been executor of Mom's will, the person trusted to make sure everything was handled properly. I drove to her house in Rancho Santa Fe at 8 in the morning. She answered in her bathrobe, took one look at my face and said, "Come in, I'll make tea." Earl Grey, the same kind Mom drank. We sat at Margaret's kitchen table, and I didn't know where to start. Margaret started for me. "I need to tell you something that's bothered me for a year." Her hands shook slightly as she poured. "The week before Eleanor passed, Rebecca called me, asked about liquid assets, not funeral costs, not grief logistics. She wanted to know how fast the estate could be converted to cash." I set down my cup. What exactly did she ask? She said, if Daniel gave me power of attorney, could I access funds before probate closes? I told her legally yes, ethically questionable. She thanked me and hung up. I thought she was stressed and asking clumsy questions. "Your mother was dying, Daniel. You were falling apart. I didn't want to add to your burden with suspicions I couldn't prove." Margaret's voice broke. "But she wasn't stressed. She was planning. I should have told you then. I should have warned you. Eleanor would have seen right through her. Your mother always said Rebecca was too focused on appearances, on the Instagram life. I thought she was being uncharitable. Turns out Eleanor was right. She was always right about people." I showed Margaret the bank statements, the messages, the hotel receipt for March 9th. She cried, actually put her head down on the table and sobbed. "While Eleanor was dying, while you were there holding her hand, reading to her, Rebecca was..." She couldn't finish. "I'm going to make this right," I said, "but I need to know. If I expose this publicly, will people believe me? Or will they think I'm a bitter ex-husband making things up?" Margaret lifted her head. Her eyes were red, but fierce. "You show them the evidence, and I'll back every word. Your mother trusted me to protect her legacy. This..." She gestured at the documents. "This is desecration. Rebecca doesn't get to walk away clean." Rebecca's Instagram was a goldmine of self-incrimination. I'd never paid much attention to her posts, the carefully curated life, the inspirational quotes, the grief journey content that her followers loved. But Thomas Reed, forensic accountant extraordinaire, paid very close attention. He called me on March 17th. "I need you to look at a post from July 18th, your wife's birthday." I pulled it up. A photo of Rebecca's wrist, the Tiffany bracelet catching sunlight. Caption, "Feeling blessed despite the hard year. Sometimes you have to treat yourself." Self-care, Jacques' grief journey, Jacques' healing, 43 comments. "You deserve it, queen." "Treat yourself, mama." "So proud of how you're healing." If they only knew. Thomas sent me another document, Brian Marshall's credit card statement. July 16th, Tiffany & Co., Fashion Valley. $6,200, 2 days before her birthday. Purchased while he had access to estate funds. Purchased while she had power of attorney over my dead mother's money. She wore stolen money on her wrist and called it self-care. The internet loved it. I scrolled through her entire feed with new eyes. Cabo vacation photos from June. Stolen money. The new Peloton bike in our bedroom in August. Stolen money. Self-care day at Glen Ivy Hot Springs Spa in September. $580 package. Stolen money. Each post had this tone of, I'm healing from loss. The loss she was healing from was my mother's death. The money she used was my mother's estate, and her 85,000 followers applauded her strength. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so vile. I called Brian Marshall's office on March 18th, kept my voice steady. "I have some questions about the estate. Can we meet?" He agreed immediately. I probably thought I was still clueless. "Of course, Daniel. Always happy to help. Tomorrow at 2? California is a one-party consent state for recordings. Penal Code Section 632. I can record any conversation I'm part of without telling the other person. I'd looked it up, made sure. I pressed record on my iPhone's voice memos app the second I walked into his office. Marshall and Associates law offices, 6th floor, La Jolla Village Drive. Same office where Mom had signed her will, where she'd trusted Brian to handle everything properly. Brian looked the same as always. Expensive suit, easy smile, the kind of professional warmth that makes you feel like you're in good hands. "Daniel, good to see you. How are you holding up?" "Getting by," I said, sat across from his desk. I had some questions about the administration fees. They seem high. He didn't even flinch. Complex estates require intensive oversight, especially with trust distributions, tax planning, beneficiary coordination. Rebecca and I have been working closely to ensure proper asset management. Rebecca and I. He said it so casually, like they were just professional colleagues. "Working closely?" I repeated. "That's good. She mentioned you've been very helpful with future planning, post-estate settlement." Brian smiled. "Yes, we've discussed her financial independence goals once the estate closes. Every client's needs are different." Financial independence goals. In the context of the messages I'd read, that meant divorce planning. That meant helping Rebecca strategize, leaving me using my own mother's money. "Is that typical?" I asked. "For an estate attorney to help the power of attorney holder plan their financial future." He paused, just for a second. "Estate planning often involves personal financial consultation. It's all part of the service." I asked a few more questions. Let him dig deeper. He talked about investment strategies Rebecca was considering, about properties she might want to purchase, about how challenging it must be for her to support a grieving spouse while managing her own needs. Every word was evidence. Every smooth explanation was another nail. I left his office 40 minutes later and immediately emailed the recording to Thomas Reed and Jessica. Jessica texted back within minutes. "He just admitted to helping her plan financial independence while managing your estate. That's consciousness of guilt. You've got him." The hardest evidence came from the people I least expected, my own children. I picked up Kevin from soccer practice on March 18th. Just normal father-son time. He climbed into the car, grass-stained and happy. "How was practice?" I asked. "Good. Coach says I'm getting better at defense." He paused. "Dad, are you still sad about Grandma?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why?" "Mom said you're really sad and that's why you're grumpy, but you're not grumpy, you're just quiet." I wasn't grumpy, I was grieving. But in Rebecca's narrative, grief looked like a character flaw. "Did Mom say anything else?" I tried to keep my voice casual, just that Uncle Brian makes her laugh more than you do lately. Kevin said it innocently, without malice, just reporting facts. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Uncle Brian?" "Yeah, Mom's friend, the lawyer guy. He took us to Disneyland in November. Remember when you had that teacher conference weekend?" I did remember. San Francisco, November 8th through 10th. A professional development conference I couldn't miss. Rebecca had said she'd handle the kids, maybe take them to the zoo or something. I checked my phone later that night, found the messages from November 9th. Rebecca to Brian. "The kids loved Space Mountain. Daniel has no idea we're 30 minutes from him at the Disneyland Hotel. This is our life in 6 months." She'd taken my children on a family vacation with her affair partner while I was 300 miles away at a teaching conference, while I trusted her to care for our kids. Hannah, our 8-year-old, drew a picture that week. She brought it to me on March 19th, proudly displaying her crayon artwork. "Look, Daddy, it's our family." I looked, me on the left side of the paper, Rebecca and the kids on the right. In the middle, a stick figure with brown hair labeled Bree. "Who's Bree, honey?" "Mommy's happy friend. He's nice. He bought me ice cream at Disneyland." That drawing is now Exhibit E in my custody filing, my 8-year-old daughter's innocent crayon testimony to her mother's affair. I sat at my laptop that night and compiled everything. Bank statements, hotel receipts, text message screenshots. Instagram posts cross-referenced with credit card charges, Brian's recorded admission, Margaret's written testimony, children's statements, 300 pages of evidence, meticulously organized, chronologically arranged, impossible to deny. Jessica reviewed it all via video call. "This is airtight," she said. "She's going to try to claim emotional distress, claim you were neglectful during your grief. But these numbers don't lie. The timeline doesn't lie. She was planning this while your mother was still alive." "What should I do?" I asked. Jessica's face hardened. "What would Mom want you to do?" I knew the answer. Mom had taught me that truth matters, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. "I'm going to confront her," I said. Tomorrow night, before the memorial service." "Good," Jessica said. "I'll be there. You'll need a witness." March 19th, 2025, the night before the memorial service, I texted Rebecca at noon. "Can we talk tonight, just you and me, about the memorial tomorrow, about us?" She replied within seconds. A heart emoji. Actually typed a heart. The audacity was almost impressive. I spent the afternoon preparing, printed every bank statement, every hotel receipt, every relevant text message, organized them in chronological order on our dining room table like I was preparing for a trial, because in a way I was. Jessica arrived at 6, sat in the living room with the door open, close enough to hear everything, far enough to not be confrontational, a witness, not a participant. I called Margaret at 6:30, put her on speakerphone, muted, she'd hear every word. Another witness. You don't confront an embezzler without documentation. Rebecca came home at 7. I heard her car in the driveway, her keys in the door. She walked into the kitchen, saw the papers spread across our dining room table, and her face did something I'd never seen before. A micro expression, there and gone in a second. Fear, then she recovered, smiled. "What's all this? Spring cleaning?" "Sit down," I said. She heard something in my voice. The smile faltered. "Daniel, what's going on?" "Sit down." She sat, slowly, her eyes scanning the documents, trying to read them upside down. I slid the first one across the table. "This is the joint account you opened with Brian Marshall on June 18th, 2024, $340,000 from my mother's estate. Explain." The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Brian handles the estate. You should ask him." I slid the signature card across. "This is your signature. You opened this account with him. Joint ownership. Equal access to funds that weren't yours." "Those are administrative accounts, Daniel. For estate expenses." "Really?" I pulled up the credit card statements. "Is Tiffany an estate expense? The Fairmont Hotel, a Cabo vacation, the Peloton bike in our bedroom?" Her hands were shaking now. She tried anger next. "You're going through my accounts? My private... That's a violation of privacy, Daniel. You can't just..." I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. "You used my power of attorney to commit fraud. You stole from my mother's estate while she was dying. Privacy doesn't cover felonies, Rebecca." "Felonies? Are you insane? I helped you. You were falling apart. Someone had to manage the finances." I slid the hotel receipt across the table. March 8th through 10th, 2024. You felt like helping while I held my dying mother's hand. She saw the date, the check-in time. Her face confirmed everything. It's not what it looks like. Stop. My voice was quiet, quieter than it should have been. Just stop. I have 8 months of text messages, Rebecca. I read every single one. Her eyes went wide. You hacked my phone? Family iCloud sharing. Everything synced to the iPad. You know, the one we use for recipes. I didn't hack anything. You just weren't careful. I pulled out my phone, started reading aloud. June 23rd. Daniel's finally sleeping through the night. Took him long enough. August 15th. Once the estate settles and we move the last 120,000, you can file. December 3rd. Kevin asked why I'm always working late. I said, Mommy has important meetings. He's so gullible, just like his dad. Her face crumpled, started crying, right on schedule. Every cheater's playbook is the same. Daniel, please, I can explain. Explain what? That you called our 10-year-old son gullible for trusting his mother? That you took him to Disneyland with your affair partner while I was at a conference? That you changed your handwriting to match Brian's so you could forge documents more easily? I slid Dr. Hayes' handwriting analysis across. The before and after signatures, the practice sheets. Rebecca stared at the documents like they might burst into flames. This is a misunderstanding. You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly in my life. I pulled out more messages, read them one by one. The divorce planning, the Pinterest boards for their future house, the discussions about how they'd frame me as the impossible to live with grieving widower. You planned everything, I said, down to the narrative. I was going to be the sad dad who pushed you away. You were going to be the patient saint who finally had enough. You were going to take half of everything, including my mother's inheritance, and move to La Quinta with Brian, start fresh. Our life together was just a waiting period until you could cash out. Rebecca was sobbing now, full body shaking. Please, please, Daniel. Think about the kids. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll pay it back. We can... Pay it back with what money? I asked. You spent $340,000 on hotels and jewelry and a life with another man. The estate accounts are frozen as of 9 this morning. Your access is terminated. You have nothing. She looked up, horror and realization mixing on her face. You froze the accounts? Power of attorney revoked. As of 9 a.m. today. I filed the paperwork yesterday. You no longer have any legal access to my mother's estate. You can't do that. I already did. Check your email. You received notice at 9:03 a.m. You were probably too busy to notice. She grabbed her phone, scrolled frantically. Found the email from my attorney. Her hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. Daniel, please, I made mistakes. I was confused. I was lonely. You were so focused on your mother. Don't. My voice cut through her tears. Don't you dare make this about me neglecting you while my mother died. You don't get to flip this. You don't get to be the victim. She stood up, paced, desperate now. I need time. I need space to think about this, about what I want, about our marriage. You've been impossible to live with since your mom died. I can't do this right now. I need space to figure out what I want. There it was, the line I'd been waiting for. Space. She wanted space. I stood up, looked her in the eye, let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. You want space? My voice was calm, cold. Here's space. You have 72 hours to return every dollar you stole, or I file criminal charges for embezzlement, fraud, and elder abuse. Yes, elder abuse. Because you stole from a cancer patient's estate while she was dying. That's a felony in California. We're married. Community property. Community property doesn't cover embezzlement. And I already filed for divorce. You were served 20 minutes ago. Check your email. She looked at her phone again, saw the email from my attorney, timestamp 6:42 p.m. Her hands went limp. You can't destroy me like this, she whispered. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Pack your bags. Your space starts tonight. You're out of this house by morning. The kids are staying with me. You think I'm letting them stay with someone who called Kevin gullible, who lied to their faces, who took them on vacation with your affair partner? A judge will see 300 pages of evidence. Bank fraud, hotel receipts from the day my mother died, text messages planning to steal their inheritance. Your own daughter drew a picture of your affair partner as part of our family. Hannah labeled him Mommy's happy friend. That's Exhibit E in my custody filing. Rebecca looked at Jessica in the doorway. Jessica, please. We're family. Tell him. Jessica's voice was ice. You stole from our mother. You're not family. Rebecca's face twisted. She looked back at me. What about tomorrow? The memorial service? You're invited, I said. Be there. Smile for the cameras. Because if you don't show, everyone will wonder why. And we wouldn't want rumors, would we? She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd only ever seen the man she thought she could manipulate. I'll make you regret this, she said. You already made me regret 12 years of marriage. What's one more day? She grabbed her purse, started toward the bedroom. Don't bother packing much, I said. You won't be coming back. I'm changing the locks at midnight. Keys on the counter before you leave. She left at 9 p.m. Didn't say goodbye to the kids. They were at Jessica's hotel. I'd sent them there earlier with instructions to let them watch movies and eat junk food. They didn't need to see this. After Rebecca's car pulled away, Jessica came into the dining room. You think she'll show tomorrow? Absolutely. She's a performer. She'll bet that I won't make a scene at Mom's memorial. She thinks I'm too polite, too devastated, too concerned with what people think. Jessica smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. She really doesn't know you at all, does she? No, I said. She doesn't. Margaret's voice came through the speakerphone, still on mute until now. I'd forgotten she was listening. Daniel, you still there? I'm here, Margaret. Your mother would be proud and heartbroken, but proud. I looked at the dining room table covered in evidence, at the life I'd built that was now rubble, at the truth that was about to explode tomorrow. I hope you're right, I said. Phone records later showed Rebecca called Brian 31 times that night. He told her to play the victim at the memorial. Let me look unstable if I made accusations. They thought the church ladies would rally around the poor wife with the cruel husband. They really didn't know my mother's friends. March 20th, 2025, 1 year to the day since Mom died. The memorial service was scheduled for 4 p.m. at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church on Avenida de las Vistas in La Jolla. Same church where Mom had taught Sunday school for 30 years. Same sanctuary where I was baptized. Same pews where Rebecca and I got married 12 years ago. Poetic, in a deeply uncomfortable way. I arrived at 2:30 to set up. The church was empty except for Pastor Williams, who was arranging flowers near the altar, white lilies, Mom's favorite. Daniel, he said warmly, how are you holding up? Getting through it, I said, not a lie, not the whole truth either. Your mother was a remarkable woman. I'm honored to help celebrate her life today. I nodded, carried my laptop to the media booth. St. Andrews had updated their sound system 5 years ago, full projector setup, wireless presentation capabilities. Very modern for a church built in 1952. I loaded my PowerPoint, 35 slides total, tested the projector. Everything worked perfectly, almost too perfectly. The first 30 slides were a genuine tribute. Mom as a young woman in Ohio, fresh out of nursing school with that bright smile. Her wedding photo. Her first day at Sharp Memorial Hospital in 1989, looking impossibly young in her scrubs. Family vacations to Yosemite, teaching Kevin to ride a bike, reading to Hannah at bedtime, her quilting circle friends, her book club, 30 years of a life well lived, beautiful, heartbreaking, exactly what you'd expect at a memorial service. Then slides 31 through 35. Jessica arrived at 3, sat in the third row, right side. Close enough to act if needed, far enough to not seem confrontational. She gave me a small nod. Margaret came at 3:15 with her quilting circle friends, 6 women in their 70s, all of whom had known Mom since the early 90s. They hugged me, told me how much they missed Eleanor, how proud she'd be of me for organizing this memorial, if they only knew. People filtered in slowly, Mom's nursing school friends, her book club, neighbors from Del Mar, my teaching colleagues from Torrey Pines. By 3:45, there were over 100 people in the pews, standing room only in the back. Rebecca walked in at 3:55 holding Kevin's hand. Hannah walked beside her, unusually quiet. Rebecca wore a black dress, simple, elegant, minimal makeup, tissues clutched in her free hand, Oscar-worthy costume design. She sat in the front pew, right where family sits, hugged Margaret, who barely hugged back, I noticed, whispered to Eleanor's old friends. "Thank you for coming. She meant so much to me. I miss her every day." The performance was flawless. I noticed Brian wasn't there. Smart, coward, but smart. Kevin looked at me with confused eyes. He'd spent last night at Jessica's hotel, probably wondering why Mommy wasn't there to say goodnight. Hannah fidgeted with her dress, drawing invisible patterns on the church bulletin. Neither understood why their parents suddenly couldn't be in the same room, why Mommy had slept at Grandma Margaret's house, why everything felt wrong. That broke my heart more than anything Rebecca had done, knowing that in 10 minutes their childhood innocence would shatter completely. Pastor Williams started at exactly 4 p.m., opening prayer. A hymn, Amazing Grace, Mom's favorite. Then he introduced me. "Daniel has prepared a tribute to his mother. Please join me in celebrating the life of Eleanor Grace Cooper." I walked to the pulpit, looked at 120 faces. Neighbors who'd known Mom for decades, friends who'd held her hand through chemo, students she'd mentored at the hospital, my children, my sister, Margaret, Rebecca. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared, Mom's nursing school graduation photo, 1973. My mother, Eleanor Grace Cooper, believed in 3 things, I began: honesty, service, and family. She spent 35 years as a nurse at Sharp Memorial Hospital, night shifts, double shifts, holding strangers' hands when their families couldn't be there. Slide 2, Mom at the hospital in her scrubs, surrounded by coworkers. Slide 3, her with patience, that gentle smile she had. She made quilts for every grandchild, every neighbor's baby. She read constantly. Steinbeck was her favorite, East of Eden. She made me read it when I was 8, made me promise to always tell the truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. People were crying. Margaret nodded. Rebecca dabbed her eyes with a tissue, probably real tears, thinking she'd survive this, thinking I'd keep it dignified, safe. Slide 10, Mom teaching Kevin to fish. Slide 15, her laugh lines at Hannah's 5th birthday party. Slide 20, her quilting circle, all smiling at the camera. I talked about her values, her integrity, how she'd worked 3 jobs to put me through college, how she'd never complained, never asked for recognition, how she'd faced cancer with the same grace she'd faced everything else. Mom taught me that truth matters, I said, my voice steady, calm. She taught me that honesty is the foundation of love, of family, of everything that matters. I paused, looked directly at Rebecca. So today, on the anniversary of her death, I want to honor her by telling the truth. I clicked to slide 31. The room went silent. The projection screen showed a split image. Left side, photo of me holding Mom's hand in hospice, her oxygen mask, my exhausted, tear-stained face. The timestamp was clearly visible. March 9th, 2024, 3:42 p.m. Right side, Fairmont Grand Del Mar hotel receipt. 2 guests, Rebecca Cooper and Brian Marshall. Check-in time, March 9th, 2024, 3:15 p.m. I heard someone gasp. Later, I found out it was Margaret. While I sat with my dying mother, I said, my voice carrying to every corner of that church, my wife was checked into a hotel suite with our family's estate attorney, the same attorney who, 3 weeks later, helped her open a joint account to embezzle $340,000 from Mom's estate. The silence shattered. Whispers erupted like wildfire. I clicked to slide 32, bank statement, Pacific Western Bank, joint account, Rebecca A. Cooper and Brian Marshall. Balance $340,000. $340,000, I repeated, transferred in 5 installments between June and December of last year, while she had power of attorney over my mother's estate, while I trusted her to handle things properly because I was too devastated to function. Rebecca stood up, tried to speak. This isn't... I clicked to slide 33. Text message screenshots. I didn't read them all, just the worst ones. August 15th. Once the estate settles and we move the last 120,000, you can file. Timing matters for asset protection. December 3rd. Kevin asked why I'm always working late. I said Mommy has important meetings. He's so gullible, just like his dad. Kevin started crying, quiet sobs that cut through the church like glass. I clicked to slide 34. Instagram post. Rebecca's wrist with the Tiffany bracelet. Next to it, Brian Marshall's credit card statement. July 16th, 2024. Tiffany and Co. $6,200. She wore stolen money on her wrist and called it self-care. Posted about her healing journey while spending my dead mother's estate on jewelry and hotels and a life with another man. People were pulling out phones. Some were recording. Some were already posting to social media. I could see the glow of screens throughout the sanctuary. Slide 35, handwriting analysis. Rebecca's old signature next to her new signature. The expert's notes about deliberate mimicry. She changed her handwriting to match his so they could forge documents together, so when she authorized payments to herself, the signatures would look cohesive. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't grief or confusion. This was premeditated fraud. Margaret stood up from her pew, walked to the front, faced Rebecca. "You called me the week before Eleanor died," Margaret said, her voice shaking with fury. "Asked how to access estate funds. I thought you were worried about funeral costs. You were planning theft. Eleanor loved you like a daughter. You betrayed her on her deathbed." Rebecca's face was white. She tried to speak. "This is a misunderstanding." Someone yelled from the back. "We heard the text messages." Someone else. "You stole from a cancer patient." Eleanor's quilting circle friends, 6 women who'd known Mom since the 80s, stood up in unison, turned their backs to Rebecca, literally faced away from her, an ancient gesture of shunning that hit harder than any words. Rebecca grabbed Kevin's hand. He pulled away. "You lied to Daddy," Kevin said, his voice small but clear. "You lied about Grandma." 10 years old, and he understood everything. Rebecca looked around desperately, saw phones recording, saw faces twisted in disgust, saw the community that had supported her for 12 years turning against her in real time. She ran, pushed past Jessica, her heels echoing on the stone floor. The church doors slammed behind her with a sound like thunder. 120 people sat in absolute silence. Hannah was crying into Margaret's side. Kevin sat frozen, staring at the projection screen where his mother's betrayal was still displayed in high definition. Pastor Williams cleared his throat. "Let us pray," he said quietly, "for truth, for healing, for the grace to know the difference between justice and vengeance." I sat down next to Hannah. She whispered, "Is Mommy bad?" "Mommy made very bad choices," I said. "Are you bad for telling everyone?" I didn't have an answer for that. Outside, I heard a car start, tires squealing. Rebecca leaving the parking lot at a speed that was probably illegal. Inside, Margaret stood and addressed the church. "Eleanor Cooper was my best friend for 32 years. She was the most honest person I knew. She would want the truth told, no matter how painful. Daniel did the right thing." Half the room nodded. The other half looked uncertain, torn between satisfaction at seeing justice and horror at the spectacle. Jessica came to sit beside me, didn't say anything, just sat there while my kids cried and the church slowly emptied and the life I'd known ended completely. The video of the memorial service hit Facebook within an hour. Local news by evening. La Jolla man exposes wife's affair at mother's memorial service. The comments section was exactly what you'd expect. Half called me a hero. Half called me cruel for doing it in front of my kids. Both sides were right. By Monday morning, Rebecca's life had unraveled completely. Sharp Memorial Hospital, the same hospital where my mother had worked for 35 years, terminated her employment. HR investigated her caregiving leave hours from the previous year. She'd claimed 180 hours of paid leave to care for Eleanor during her final months. Turned out 120 of those hours overlapped with hotel check-ins, the Cabo vacation, and weekend trips to Palm Springs. Timesheet fraud. In healthcare, that's grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. Her supervisor called me Tuesday afternoon, professional courtesy since Mom had been a beloved colleague. "We had no idea," she said. "Rebecca seemed so devoted. We all thought..." Her voice trailed off. "I'm sorry, Daniel, for everything." Brian Marshall received an emergency notice from the State Bar of California on Monday as well. License suspended pending ethics investigation, embezzlement, conflict of interest, breach of fiduciary duty. The list was long and damning. His law practice closed within the week. 30 years of building a reputation, gone. Clients fled. His partners voted to remove his name from the firm. Marshall and Associates became just associates. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. The memorial service video spread faster than I'd anticipated. Local news picked it up, then regional. By Wednesday, I was getting calls from producers wanting to tell my story. I declined all of them. The comment sections were brutal, split almost perfectly down the middle. "He's a hero. She deserved to be exposed." "He traumatized his children for revenge. That's abuse." "Why didn't he handle this privately? Why humiliate her publicly?" "Because private consequences don't work for public hypocrites." "Those poor kids. They'll never recover from watching their mother destroyed." "Those poor kids almost had their inheritance stolen. He protected them." Everyone had an opinion. No one had the full picture. How could they? They weren't there in hospice while Mom died. They didn't read 8 months of messages planning my destruction. They didn't see Rebecca call our son gullible, but they saw 2 children crying in a church. And that image was hard to argue against. The custody hearing was April 15th. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Rebecca's attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, unstable, using the children as weapons. My attorney presented evidence, bank statements, text messages, Hannah's drawing with Bry in the middle of our family, Kevin's testimony, given privately to the judge, about Uncle Brian and the Disneyland trip, the recording of Brian discussing Rebecca's financial independence goals while managing my estate. Judge Morrison reviewed everything for 90 minutes, then delivered her ruling. Primary custody to me. Rebecca gets supervised visits every other weekend, pending resolution of criminal charges. No overnight visits until completion of family therapy. Kevin cried when they told him, not because he didn't love me, because his family was destroyed and there was no putting it back together. Hannah asked if Mommy could come to her dance recital in May. I said I'd ask the judge. The answer was yes, but Rebecca would have to sit in the back, supervised, like a threat instead of a mother. Estate recovery was messier. Of the $340,000 stolen, we recovered $288,000. Some had been spent on things that couldn't be recovered, vacations, restaurants, experiences that evaporated like smoke. Brian liquidated his 401k to return his share. Rebecca had nothing to liquidate, no assets, no savings, no job. Judge Morrison ordered wage garnishment, $18,000 per year for 20 years. Rebecca will be 57 when she finishes paying it off, if she can even find work after a timesheet fraud conviction. The district attorney offered her a plea deal, 18 months probation, full restitution, community service, No jail time if she cooperated against Brian in his criminal trial. She took it. Brian's trial is scheduled for next year. His attorney is trying to claim he was manipulated, that Rebecca seduced him, that he's the real victim. Nobody's buying it. Kevin started therapy with Dr. Patricia Sanders in Encinitas. Twice a week at first, now down to once. Dr. Sanders says he has trust issues with female authority figures. He's 10 years old. He shouldn't know what trust issues are. At pickup last week, he asked, "Dad, why did you show everyone the pictures? Everyone at school knows." I knelt down to his level because I needed people to know the truth. But now everyone knows Mommy's bad. I can't make that go away. His eyes were so much older than they should be. Some kids' parents got divorced quiet. Why couldn't ours? I didn't have a good answer. Still don't. Hannah draws pictures of the church now. Dark crayons, lots of black and gray. In her latest one, everyone's a stick figure with X's for eyes. The school counselor asked what it meant. Hannah said, "That's the day everyone died." She meant the day innocence died, the day she learned that adults lie, that mothers betray, that churches can be battlegrounds. I lie awake some nights wondering, was the public exposure necessary? Could I have handled this privately, filed charges, gone through the courts, protected my children from the spectacle? But then I remember Rebecca's text about Kevin. Just like his dad. Gullible, trusting, easy to manipulate. Maybe he needed to see that evil exists even in people you love. Maybe he needed to understand that trust has to be earned, not given freely. Or maybe I'm just justifying trauma I caused because I wanted revenge dressed up as justice. Margaret used some of the recovered money to create the Eleanor Grace Cooper Memorial Scholarship, $50,000 endowment for nursing students at San Diego State. Preference given to single parents, second career students, people fighting their way back from difficult circumstances. The first recipient was a 38-year-old single mom who'd left an abusive marriage and was working toward her RN. Mom would have loved that. Second chances, helping women who help others. We held the scholarship announcement in May. Small ceremony at the hospital where Mom had worked. Her nursing school friends came, her old colleagues. Margaret spoke about Mom's legacy of service. Afterward, Margaret pulled me aside. Eleanor would be proud of you for fighting, and heartbroken that you had to. That's the thing about doing the right thing. It can be both justified and devastating. Was it the right thing? I asked. I don't know, Margaret said honestly, but it was the true thing, and Eleanor always valued truth. 6 months later, people still ask if I went too far. If I should have exposed Rebecca privately instead of at a memorial service in front of our children. Honestly, I don't know. What I do know, they stole from my kids' inheritance while my mother was dying. They involved my children in their lies. Kevin met Uncle Brian on vacation, paid with stolen money. Hannah drew her mother's affair partner into our family portrait. Rebecca said she needed space. I gave her space, 6 feet of moral ground to stand on. She couldn't fill it. Maybe I'm the villain in her story. Maybe she tells people I'm vindictive, cruel, unforgiving, that I destroyed her life over a mistake, that everyone deserves grace. But I sleep at night, most nights anyway. Can she? My mother taught me that truth doesn't care about your comfort. It just is. I told the truth. At a memorial service, in front of my kids, in front of God and everyone. Was it right? Ask me when Kevin stops having nightmares. Ask me when Hannah draws in color again. Ask me when I can look at wedding photos without wanting to burn them. But if you ask me if I'd do it again, yeah, I would. Because some betrayals are too big for quiet rooms and lawyers. Some truths demand witnesses. She wanted space. I gave her plenty, just not the kind she imagined. A note. This is a story, not advice. If you're dealing with infidelity, financial abuse, or family trauma, please seek help from licensed professionals. Legal and therapeutic guidance is essential. This narrative is meant to explore complex moral questions, not provide a roadmap. Every situation is different. Every family deserves careful professional support. Would I have been justified? Was the public exposure necessary, or did I cross a line by doing it in front of my children? I still don't know. Maybe you can help me figure it out.